Going back on camera, if you want to join us, here's the time. If you want to talk, step outside of the room. Come on, I'm being mean now. You don't want to see me get mean. Okay, what I'd like to do now is, because it's going on 10:20, I had made a reference to an early question. Could you just close the door and invite them in, but close the door? I'm not being a bully. I just want you guys to get the most out of being here. Maybe I am a bully. I don't know. Anyway, I would highly encourage any of you that have the interest in practical use of the Neurolite to not only get, but read and then use the Neurolite Practical Guide for Beginners. It's been created to answer so many of the probable questions, not all of them, but the probable questions that you'll have. There are three basic domains in which you can use the Neurolite, and I'm making this in simplicity. Brain exercise. Help right now. Brain shaping. Brain exercise. Help right now. Brain shaping. Earlier, I had encouraged you to appreciate a fundamental principle in neuroplastic development. Capacity, demand. Do your best to assess the person's capacity for change and introduce a demand that is in and around their capacity. You will be frustrated, the person will be, I don't know, something, not pleased or disappointed if their capacity is here and you introduce demand up here. If you can't lift 50 pounds, why in the world do I give you a 100-pound weight to start with? So, the brain exercise category, and this is all in the Practical Guide for Beginners. There are actual protocols. Do this on this day, do this on the next day. It's there. Okay, it's a little formulaic, but there are formulas that are based on principle. Can you modify them creatively? Well, of course you can, but don't be too liberal. If you're going to make an error, err on the conservative side. You know, do no harm, or at least respect their time and their effort. So, the brain exercise fundamentally is used to increase neuroplastic capacity. Get them so they can go learn how to play tennis. But don't put them on the tennis court if fundamental coordination, flexibility, endurance, and strength are sorely lacking. I mean, that's got to make sense to you. I mean, you understand it for your body, you understand it for your dog, you know. I think understand it for our brain. So brain exercise, that category, is used to conservatively, confidently build neuroplastic capacity. Okay? Check it out. If you don't have that practical guide, you got my card, I believe. There's an email, neurolite@gmail.com. Just say, hey, Garnet, can I have it? You'll get it. If you're working with ambassadors with the Neurolite, theoretically, they're giving all this information to you and helping you as their ambassador. I don't have any influence on what they do. Now, the brain food is the perfect companion to the brain gym. Together, they do a good job of incrementally, reliably building neuroplastic capacity. This stuff will work. You will feel better. You will like it. And so will they. It works on the same premise as fundamental exercise in the body. That's not complicated. We know enough about basic exercise to know, you know, I was oftentimes asked, you know, throughout my career, what's the best exercise? I said, that's really easy. I said, really? Yeah, the best exercise is the one you're going to do. Right? End of story. You know, after that, it's all details. So, will this stuff work? Yes. You say, well, I can't, maybe, you know, I own the Neuralite, but what about them? They have to come to me, they're my client or something. Neuroplastic reinforcements. The Neuralite is not important. Neuroplasticity is important. So as long as they're getting the neuroplastic messaging, it's going to work. So if they can only come twice a week, what are they doing the other 5 days of the week? And you say, well, I don't know what to tell them. Neuralite Practical Guide for Beginners. There's a section there on 3 or 4 really useful, non-weird or semi-weird neuroplastic reinforcements, and you have them do something that aligns with the Neuralite, and every time they return, they're in a continuum of neuroplastic change. So that's the brain exercise. I mentioned to you, it's true, for the first couple of months, once the Neuralite was stabilized as an instrument, that's the stuff I did for myself. It worked. Can't you see? Anyway, the second thing is Help Right Now. And I have to thank Pratika for that, because he and I have conversations, and you know, sometime in the past we were talking about like what's the usefulness, what's the practical. It's like Pratika and practical. It's like is that just a like coincidence or something? I'm not sure. Anyway, thanks to him, we came up with some vocabulary, which is help right now. I said, well, you know, sometimes, and he agreed, sometimes people need help right now. Regardless of the level of neuroplastic capacity, regardless of where they want to go with their brain, mind, being, body, whatever. Sometimes, pardon me, shit happens. Sometimes you end up in a situation which is tough. You could use some help right now. So you can use the Neuralite for this short-term modification of real-time experience. Now, help right now is usually in 2 categories. One is something happens that is unusual. You're not prone to that. It's not a chronic issue. It just happens. You know, you have a car accident and you're in shock, or you got really bad news and you're sad about it, or you know, you're trying to kick some habit and you're in a tooth grinding. Help right now, and again, it's not restrictive, but you have a tremendous resource of help right now methodologies in the Practical Guide. I wrote all the stuff out. It's there. You can make a reference. Is it specific? Can be. Can you know, juice it a little left and right? Of course you can. And usually what happens is in 1 to 3, what I'll call sessions, do an 11-minute, pause, do another 11-minute, boom, that's a session, and for the most part. If you do an interview style, and I talk a lot about the interview style, how to do it in an interview, that's well described in the videos. I have some techniques that are derived from different psychological sources, really good. And you do a little bit of a, after it's done, reinforcement thing. It's an hour session. It's the famous professional 50-55 minute hour. And as far as the Neuralite, you've got 22 minutes of actual light sound. So interview, blah, 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 little expectation, get on the table, here it is, 11 minutes, pause, let them cruise. You know, if they're starting to adios, then have them sit up, talk a little bit, then lay back down again. You know, the thing that the going to sleep thing is not going to sleep. Tell me to come back to that, okay? So, the help right now can make a big impact. Keep in mind that the impact isn't necessarily most evident right at the time. Pardon me, I forgot to turn this off. It isn't necessarily evident right at the time of the light and sound. You know, here, take this herb, you're going to feel better. It's like, well, I just took it, I don't feel better. Well, God, man, give it a little bit of time. You know, it's sleepy time tea, you know, drink it, I don't feel sleepy. Well, lay down 10 minutes, breathe a little bit, you know, give it a chance. So, in the help right now, you can make a big impact. And I would expect, you know, for people like Rich that work with a lot of people that come and go, you know, it's a very reasonable, easily accessible, kind of interesting, fun, satisfying way to use the Neuralite. Now, if the help right now issue is actually an aggravation of a chronic state, yes, you're going to take the edges off the square, you're going to round it out a little bit, but don't think because in a few sessions you got help right now that this chronic issue has now been satisfied. No. You know, if you're a chronic worrier and you take the edge off peak anxiety, it doesn't mean that this leads us into the third category, that you've really taken the person through brain shaping. Brain shaping is a matured application for the Neurolite practitioner. You know, if Mark comes, or I go to Mark, let's say, you know, Mark is a well-known fitness trainer, and I say, Mark, I want to change. I want to change my whole body, you know. I want to be more flexible, I want to be stronger, I want my endurance to increase. Can you help me? He said, well, yeah, we can shape your body in a program over time. That's not going to happen in a couple of weeks. In a couple of weeks, I'm probably going to hate him mostly because I'm sore all the time, or something, a bad example, right? But you get the idea that brain shaping is the biggest promise of neuroplasticity. That you can actually shape and change your brain on an ongoing basis, regardless of where you start. There will be improvement. So that's the brain shaping. Those are the three categories, generally speaking. You know, then there's the fun, entertainment, exploration category, which is fair game for anybody, anytime. Just don't knock them out. I had a guy one time say, you know, just give it to me. You know, I want like really intense. So I did, and after he said, never again. So, brain exercise, what's the point? Low capacity. You know, they want to go on a trek. They can't even walk a half an hour on a city street without getting pooped. So, bring up general capacity, brain gym, and brain food. You got the ticket. The people that need it the most are the easiest to work with because you do the least. You know, if you're an exercise trainer and a person comes in, they just got finished doing the Ironman and they want to like tweak some things, you can throw anything at them. They say, you know, is that it? Or compare having me come in and putting me through a workout. The people that need it the most, you do the least. The people that need it the most, you do the least. So it's so easy. If somebody comes in and they're digging themselves out of a hole, aging, disease factors, degenerative diseases, hey, simple brain gym, brain food, drip feed, don't get them to drink out of a fire hose, they can't. And you know what? They're going to be happy. Why? Because they're getting better every day. So brain exercise, that's the easy stuff, frankly. Just don't overdo it. And it's all laid out. I've got 12-week programs for whatever, all the programs are in the guide. You know, I mean, come on, be sensible. I'm trying to give you an approach without making it the law. I'm not so wise I can say exactly this for every person. It doesn't work like that, you know. So, the help right now, you can have a lot of good, clean fun. You can help a lot of people with the help right now. Plus, it starts to give you a familiarity with neuroplasticity and, you know, the kind of changes and what the experience is like. Don't make it too much. Don't, you know, give them headaches from bright light. You know, you don't need to do that stuff. Then you've got, if you should choose, tremendously satisfying, matured growth into brain shaping. In that case, it's mostly an issue of compliance. You know, you may have the perfect long-term program for me, but if I'm not compliant, if I don't do it, if I want you to do magic, or I don't want to follow nature, what can I say? John?
Are there any implications or benefits with young adults, teenagers, kids at 10 and 12? The Western culture, especially in the West Coast, there's a big push for high-performance kids, for lack of better terms. So
yeah. John is asking essentially a two-part question. One is about young adults, teenager, young adult, or even earlier than teenagers, and the issue of high performance. This is a particular vogue. It's a kind of an idealized sickness, in my opinion. This issue that high levels of excitation, you know, the flow states and these peak performances and all that, this is some kind of solution for cognitive wellness, to me is, in my opinion, is a mistake. I'm big on harmonizing experience, and turning it on is incredibly important, as is turning it off. And so to me, it's right now there's a new psychology emerging because of some of the limited elements in neuroplasticity, a new psychology of peak performance, high performance, hyper-excited states as being desired states. A subject that we won't go into, but is big, it's a huge thing to understand. It's basically stable and unstable states in the brain. And I have videos in the YouTube channel so entitled. I would encourage you to listen to those because of the idea that unstable states are optimum states is a naive misunderstanding. Sir?
My question is, has there been any research done on the blinds and neurolights?
Yeah, the question I'll repeat, I'm sensitive to time. Is there any research on persons that are blind and the neurolight? The simple answer is no. There's very little research of any sort other than anecdotal with the neurolight as an instrument. Now, in a broader sense, working with brain signaling, yes, there is. And persons that are congenitally blind are different than people that become blind. So there's a big difference. Those that become blind, there is a good deal of reasonable potential. Understanding also that those that become blind over time are particularly prone to a certain, it's called Charles Bonnet, there's a certain hallucinatory set of experiences that are common in people that have become blind that were not blind as they age. I would really encourage anybody interested in these topics to, he's now deceased, but the leading expert, Oliver Sacks. He's written a number of books, most famously The Woman That Mistook Her Husband for a Hat. But that there's a kind of a summary book, and it's entitled, interestingly, Hallucinations by Oliver Sacks. He's done certain TED Talks and YouTube things. He passed away a few years ago. Just entirely brilliant stuff. I was asked a question at the break. I'll make a mention. What's called phosphenes, all of the light play, the colors, the geometries, and so on. It's been deeply researched over 80 years' time, and there are consistent opinions about the mechanisms. I don't work in terms of biochemistry. I work biophysically. To me, the biochemical agents are not as interesting as the overall actions. You know, to me there are agents, actions, and outcomes. Agents, actions, and outcomes. So let's say that you, I don't know, you order a lawnmower to be delivered. And whether it's UPS or FedEx that delivers it, the agent is not nearly as important as the fact that it got delivered. So the action is you got the lawnmower. That's the biophysics of it. Then, even more important is the outcome. So what are you going to do about it now that you've got a lawnmower? Well, I'm going to mow the lawn. So mowing the lawn, the outcome, interests me primarily. Second to that is the action of creating that potential. The agent is not nearly as interesting to me as the action and the outcome. So I put my attention in the action and the outcome. I'm sure that there's a wide range of biochemicals involved in any biophysical reaction. That just makes sense to me. And I think they're being discovered every day. And that's all I'm going to say about that, to quote Forrest Gump. It's a good movie. Question. We're going to go over a little bit. If you have to leave, you can leave. If you want to stay a little bit longer. I think the next scheduled thing is at what time, roughly? In a while. Okay. Yeah, Pratika's given me a little bit of fudge time. Thank you. Question? Anybody? Hold up.
Is it possible to use it in the other way? Let's say we have a marathon runner
Yes.
that want to increase their capacity on the track. And you say, okay, we put you on a 3-month consistent endurance program.
Okay. can you use it towards a predetermined goal in advance? And Olaf, if you didn't pick it up on the camera, what about a marathon runner and you start 3 months before? There's a broad range of creative potential. And my answer does not restrict the potential, right? This is what comes to my mind. One is absolutely brain food, nasal light, every day. There's no reason why you should not, because although it will go predominantly into brain because of brain appetite for light, but any other kind of physical activity is going to be supplemented by it. Can't go wrong. The other is, you don't have any direct relationship of effect from the neurolight with, say, aerobic metabolism of the body as a whole. But I can't claim to be, an advanced athlete. Never was, never have been anyway. So much of it is to do with the mindset. And I would be interested to explore their psycho-emotional attitude towards doing the race. Right? I would be interested in motivation. I would be interested in focus. I'd be interested into where they go when they have a hard time, when they perceive themselves to be failing, what kind of judge or critic did they have in their head. Because I think in most cases, if they have reasonable physical capacity and endurance, they're going to screw up in the mindset. And you can, over 3 months' time, and if you use the interview technique, an active listening technique, I frequently begin a session, especially if it's help right now or if I'm trying to get to know them for brain shaping. I say, listen, I want to give you a gift. Write down. You just need to help me. Would you like more of something good or less of something bad? Do you want more of something good or less of something bad? That's my opener. Now, in my experience, to be careful to not be absolute in my opinion, the people that say immediately they want more of something good, I know they're bullshitting me. Right? So I say, they say, I want more of something good. And I say, okay, sounds great. Like what? Gratitude. I say, okay, what's stopping you? If you want more gratitude, what's stopping you? They say, well, I'm overcritical. So would you like to have less of being overcritical? They say, yeah. Right? So right away, you've got what I call you have the beginning of a vector. You have a sense of where to go. Because so many times the issue that they are seeking is obstructed by a certain chronic state, a habit. Joe Dispenza, who's become popular now as one of the spokesmen for neuroplasticity, I'll say it on camera, I'm not particularly fond of his approach, but one of his books, and it's not like it's bad, I just don't like it. The title of the book is Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. That's brilliant. To me, I buy the book just to be satisfied with that title. God, I got all these habits that I want to break. I never really got the appreciation that the habit that needs to be broken most of all is the habit of being myself. This mental movie called me that I want to have reality conform to. Wow. Breaking the habit of being yourself. So when I open with a question like, do you want more of something good, less of something bad? When it starts to come around to where you'll know the vector, you'll know even the help right now, how to hit the soft spot, let alone the brain shaping, is to have some sense as to how we, you, I, me, habitually perceive myself. And that perception is typically integral to opening the door to positive neuroplastic change. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so my question is about the applicability of this particular instrument for learning.
Yes.
For instance, language learning, or learning anything new.
Yes.
Because we know that you have to build pyramidal tracks and all that sort of thing. That's
All
a
that good
long-
stuff. Yeah.
That's a longer process.
Okay.
And so how is that enhanced
Okay, the question is how can we enhance
learning?
learning in the adult brain?
Right.
Something like that. Okay. I'll say this quickly. There are videos on it, but I have to give context. Neuroplastic, there are four, generally speaking, there are four types or classes of neuroplastic change. Okay, they even have names, although not every discipline uses the same name. Functional plasticity, that's where the brain will change in minutes to hours. Sometimes break down minutes to seemingly seconds, but classically it's described as minutes to hours. That's where you've got all the neuronal bodies necessary, you have the synaptic patterns, you're kind of reminding, you're kind of bringing a dormant pattern back into activity again. So functional plasticity is almost right away, minutes to hours. That's where, this is the domain of the help right now a lot. Is that you bring forward something that is already there. It's like a song you once knew but you forgot, or a poem you could recite but you need reminding, or a dance step you haven't done since high school but suddenly it's there. That's functional plasticity. Then you've got what's called synaptic plasticity. And synaptic plasticity takes place over days to weeks. That's where you've got the hardware but you're programming new software, new synaptic patterns. And they take some amount of time and reinforcement and repetition. That's synaptic plasticity. So yeah, it's going to happen, but it's going to happen over the course of a few weeks to, a few days to a few weeks, not minutes and hours. These are kind of in the category of easy come, easy go. Right? Unless you reinstate, reestablish, reinforce them, you can have change, but the change may not be that ingrained. You know, count to 10. Miserable bastard, you're so angry all the time. You know, just count, okay. And they do it for a day or two or a week or so, and after they say screw it and they blow it and they're popping their top again. You know, so you've got functional plasticity, minutes to hours, you can change. And it is change, but it's not enduring change. Then you've got synaptic plasticity that is in days to weeks, where, you know, you're starting to get a groove here. You're teaching neurons new patterns. Then you've got neuronal plasticity. So functional, synaptic, neuronal, fancy names, but that's what they're called. And this takes place over months. Months of time. And then you've got systemic plasticity that takes place over years. And by the way, this is not only how you get out of trouble, but how you get into trouble. This is how you can screw yourself up. The same periodicity is true of bad experience as good experience. You know, for adults, much of the learning we have to do is preceded by unlearning. Unlearning. That's the breaking the habit of being yourself category. You know, one of the toughest people to teach golf swings to are seasoned golfers. Because the habits are so deeply ingrained in reflex that you've got to unlearn them before you can do new learning. So, when it comes to language, in part, we have to be careful with language because it's a special set. Okay, she's saying anything beyond language?
Well, whatever you learn, you have to learn in a language. If you're going to learn higher math, right? You've
Okay.
never done it before,
Okay.
and now you're being introduced to it, you have to learn the language. You have to learn how those numbers relate.
Okay, this is symbolic learning.
And it takes, well, we know that it takes, 3 months to make a change in how your brain works, right? Typically now.
Well, functional, synaptic, neuronal.
Typically.
So that's,
So my question,
okay,
maybe I wasn't
it's all
clear.
good.
So my question is there a way to measure the difference between how one proceeds with that with and without the lines?
No, not that I know of. There's no metric that I know that is absolute over all categories of learning. But I'm going to make one comment here.
Okay.
You know, symbolic learning is a special category,
Yes.
which is different than experiential learning. So, you know, experiential doesn't require a new language. it requires a reordering of your experience. Symbolic, whether it's Portuguese language or whether it's math or computer programming, this is symbolic learning. So the brain, the mind, you have to learn the language, vocabulary, before you can create sentences
Right.
in the language. So there are two types. Learning is possible. That's the good news, that it is possible to keep learning. Okay. The integration of, in this case, language is challenging because the brain's architecture changes more slowly in adulthood than it does in childhood. As a matter of fact, the brain throws away some absurd % of early learning because we just learned a lot more stuff than we need. So there's a delete button, there's a trash button that happens in late teens, early 20s. The brain matures finally at 25 years old. I'll say mid-20s, that's more fair. Which is why teenagers have such a confusing time, because the prefrontal cortex and a lot of the reasoning capacities aren't neurologically complete in your teenage years. It's very difficult to make rational decisions, to weigh value against risk, reward against risk for the teenager, because actually the cognitive control system is not fully matured yet. They can't really weigh the risk of current activity against the reward based on past experience. It's not there. So, learning is a deep and complex subject. We could say, I guess, that everything is learning. That's the brain skills section. What I say about the Neurolite, the brain gym is the exercise area. The brain food is the energy area. And the brain skills is the education area. Yes, I like alliterations, right? E-E-E. So, exercise, energy, education. Brain gym, brain food, brain skills. The design dynamic of the Neurolite is what I call, maybe a bit grandiose, but I call it design by nature. That the design of the instrument attempts to align with the way that systems behave biologically. Okay. Anything else? I'm tiptoeing towards our allotted end because it's 10 to 11. I'll risk going to 11 if you want. You have a way to contact me if you like, and I'm reasonably serious that if your schedule permits and you want to visit, maybe a few of you, if you want even to, I've got a nice house, my wife doesn't mind, we've got guest rooms and it's up in the mountains in Mekongpong. It's not a bad, Rich has been there, Jen has been there, these guys have been there. It's a nice place, And I'm not trying to squeeze juice out of the lemon here. It's just, if there's an appetite and you happen to be here and you've come a long distance, I really love sharing learning. It's just some of the best thing ever. So that's my mission statement or something. Okay, 10 more minutes. If you're hungry, I've got more food in the kitchen. That's it.